Hello everyone, this is the Undying Nephilim, and today I'm going to finally show the Deku Scrubs. If there was one word I could use to sum up this faction, it would probably be fun. I think currently they're probably the funnest faction in the game now, and after all the factions have been added, they're probably still going to be the funnest, or one of. I don't know, these guys have a lot of just really cool features, and I'm probably completely wrong, but this might actually be the longest faction video. Might even go on for about an hour, because there's a lot of stuff that I gotta show with these guys. I'm probably going to be completely wrong, and this one will end up being the shortest somehow. But I don't know, I'll go ahead and stop talking and show you guys some of their features. So I'm gonna do this video a little bit out of order compared to the normal faction video, because one of their features I have to show before I do anything else, because normally what I do is I disable the Fog of War and put on instant build and stuff, but one of their features requires the Fog of War to be on, and that would be this little guy right here. This right here, this little pea hat that's floating around, is the Deku Scrub Scout unit. And there are several things about this scout that make it different from all the other scout units. First of all, if I try to select it, I can't. So I cannot click on him and order him around or boss him around or anything. Another thing about him, which might be hard to tell if you're watching this online, but if you look on the mini-map, he does not appear as a player colored dot. He actually appears as a wild animal. So if this guy is passing near an enemy player and they're looking on their mini-map for enemies, they'll just see it as a wild animal and they might not even think anything of it. Another thing about him, I think it's probably the most obvious of the three, is he's just wandering around on his own, slowly revealing the map. So the Deku Scrub Scout, you can't control it. It shows up as a wild animal. It has a pretty big line of sight too, and it just slowly reveals the map on its own. So that is the unique features of the Deku Scrub Scout. They're completely automated, and they kind of just reveal the map for you, so you don't have to micromanage them like normal scouts. I'll go ahead and make a few more, I suppose, just to watch them all wander out. Although I don't have instant build on, so I'll have to wait a few seconds. But yeah, and I also think they're one of the only factions that also has a flying scout unit too, so I don't know, I think that's pretty cool. Let's see, there's another one, slowly drifting away. Anyway, now that I've shown their awesome scout unit, I will go ahead and put on instant build and everything so I can show all their other stuff. So, how do the Deku Scrubs play? Let me cancel these really quick. Well, as evidenced by their scout unit, and this was sort of unintentional when I started making them, but the Deku Scrubs are really, really good at, I would say, exploration and kind of spreading across the map and exploring the map in kind of an easy and safe manner. Something that's not in the engine yet, but will be, is that wild animals actually will not attack Deku Scrub units unless they attack the wild animals first. So on maps that have a lot of wild animals, it'll be really easy to kind of just send your units around the map to explore without fear of a random Octorok or something just murdering, one of your little units. Although if you don't manually scout out the map and you just use these P-hats, wild animals, I mean, even if wild animals could attack them, most wild animals can't attack flying units, so even then they'd be able to explore the map in relative peace compared to most of the other factions. But anyway, their bases I would kind of describe as something between the Kokiri and the Dark Nuts. They kind of have the sort of unified base structure like the Dark Nuts, but it's a lot smaller, kind of like the Kokiri and Lanayru. So I would say their bases are somewhere in between those two factions. So let me get their workers out of the way. I think I need 4 of these to show all of their buildings, so I'll build the 3 other ones later. Resources. The Deku Scrubs, their resources are slightly different. They still gather wood like all the other factions, so you just have their workers go to the trees to get wood. They also gather rupees, just like the other factions, so that is different. What is a little bit different is their food and their replacement for metal. Deku Scrubs can gather berries or fruit, so you can still get food from fruit bushes, but Deku Scrubs actually they're herbivores and they don't eat meat. So you cannot gather food from wild animals or livestock, or you can't fish. And also, they do not gather metal for their armors. They actually have a unique resource, which I will go ahead and build at this building right here. This resource is just called Mega Nuts, and it is these really, really giant Deku nuts that they grow on this really large tree. And what they do is they use those to create their armors and weaponry and stuff. It's kind of like the coral mold that the Zora have. It's kind of just like this fictional BSC type substance that they use to make all their armor and whatnot. And in addition to fruit, since fruit is very finite, even on maps that are abundant in fruit, they have their own little farms of Deku nuts that they can gather with their workers at their base to get their food. So yeah, that's their main source of food, is the Deku Nut farms. And I have instant build on, so he just gathers the food instantly. But anyway, what should I show next? I'm probably just going to jump right into their units. I'm trying to think if there's any other features I want to show before I show the units. I'll just go ahead and get right to their units. So, I already showed the scout unit. Their next unit should be at the mustering base. Alright, so actually their first unit's right here. It is the Scrubling. This little guy right here. These guys were in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. I think those are the only 2 games this particular type of Deku Scrub was from. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but Scrubling is just the Deku Scrub's really cheap, basic attack unit. It has a very, very short range attack. It just spits out Deku Seeds at enemies. You can actually upgrade them so that their attack range is twice as long, but otherwise they're kind of like the Zerglings for the Deku Scrubs. They're very weak. You can train them in large numbers, which I'll go ahead and train a few of them right now. They're a very swarmy unit. They're pretty much nothing more than meat shields. And yeah, I just like to watch them hop around. Deku Scrubs are weirdly cute, even though they're these hyper-violent, murderous plant creatures that boil things alive. But yeah, that's a Scrubling. Nothing particularly special about their abilities or stats or anything. When stealth is added into the game, though, they'll be able to burrow into the ground and hide, and then pop up and shoot out their Deku Seeds. But EXO hasn't added stealth into the engine yet, so as of now, they can't do that. They can't burrow and become stealthed. But they will when we add that into the engine. So the second Deku Scrub unit is the Gargling, which they showed up in Majora's Mask. And I also think they were in Four Sword Adventures. I'm struggling to remember which one showed up in Four Sword Adventures, but I actually think it was the design from Majora's Mask. But anyway, the Gargling, this little happy guy here with the pointy stick, they're basically the spearman unit for the Deku Scrubs. They don't have any special abilities or features. They are an anti-cavalry unit, obviously. They're also an anti-creature unit, so they're really good at hunting wild animals, even though if you're a Deku Scrub player, you probably won't be hunting wild animals. The only wild animals you'll probably go out of your way to fight are like bosses and things like that. But a lot of enemy armies have creature units, including the Deku Scrubs themselves. So if you're fighting against a player with lots of creatures, like another Deku Scrub player, a lot of these guys do, I think it's either ×2 or ×3 bonus damage to creatures. So they're really good at killing creatures, despite the fact that they're these little tiny guys. A lot of Deku Scrub units are very vulnerable to knockback because they're so small, so they go flying all over the place when they get hit with knockback. But anyway, that is the Gargling. So I'll go on to the third Deku Scrub unit, which is this little guy, the Nutling. It is this really tiny Deku Scrub here with a giant Deku Nut for a helmet. And his notable feature is that despite the fact that he's extremely tiny, they have a very high armor value. So unless you are attacking them with magic or fire or a unit that does true damage, these guys will barely take any damage from almost any kind of physical weapon in the game. They're incredibly resistant to damage because they have a very high armor value. And they have a technology you can research that doubles. Let me see. I think it's double. No, it's only 25%. You can boost their armor values by 25%. So, and like with the Scrublings, when we add stealth into the engine, they will also be able to bury into the ground and become completely invisible. So they'll also be a stealth unit. Most stealth units in the game are not very durable. Most stealth units in the game, they're kind of really easy to kill once they're detected. So this guy's kind of unique in the fact that he'll be a stealth unit and he'll also be really hard to kill unless you have the appropriate units to damage him. But anyway, that is, I think, all there is to this cute little guy. Like his little squeaks. I like most of the Deku Scrub sound effects. They're very cute. They were cute in the sounds they make from Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time are really cool too. Anyway, what is their next units? Let's see. Oh yeah. Next up is their support unit, which is the Hornling. This guy right here. If it wasn't obvious from the sounds, he is a Deku Scrub that carries around this little horn. Something like a cross between a French horn and a tuba. It's the bizarre design. Loosely based on the one from Majora's Mask. The one from Majora's Mask had, a bunch of multiple horns. This is kind of like a single one. But anyway, this is the Deku Scrub support unit. At the moment, I would actually say it's not particularly useful until we get abilities into the engine. In the game right now, he just kind of has a passive ability. Every Deku Scrub that's in this circle moves a little bit faster. But when we add abilities into the game, like active abilities where you click on the icon and it does something, he'll have an ability where when you click on it, he lets out this really loud and obnoxious sound from his horn that stuns a bunch of units around him. So that'll be really funny as an ability when we get that into the game. But for right now, he's kind of like the Goron drummer, where he just makes everyone around him move a little bit faster. So I'll go ahead and send him with all these guys up here. Oh yeah, I really like this building with the little dancing Deku Scrubs on the stage there. I might add a crowd of Deku Scrubs watching them. Just have them all dancing down there too. But I don't know, I thought that was really cute. I'm not even sure how I came up with that idea. But yeah, this building is basically kind of like a musical stage where they play music and dance and stuff, and that's where you can train their the Hornling. Alright, so I need to build some more bases, but I think first I'll just go ahead and show their turrets. One of their turrets is just a tower. Nothing particularly special about that one, although you can garrison units inside of it, so I'll go ahead and I can show that really quickly. So I can garrison the little scrublings inside and they'll shoot the Deku seeds out. And then the other defensive structure they have, which isn't really a structure, it's technically a unit, but it's these giant Deku Babas, which make it very difficult to capture Deku Scrub building, because any unit that comes up and tries to capture their building will get massacred by these guys. So these guys are, yeah, they're basic. I would say their intent is to prevent Deku Scrub buildings from being captured easily. Despite the fact that they're melee, they actually have a pretty far reach. So when this guy attacks, he'll be able to stretch basically all the way over to here and attack enemies that far away from him. Basically, the gap between halfway between each of the plots that you can build them on. So obviously he's not very useful against ranged units or siege units. Ranged units and siege units will just, you know, attack them from a distance. Kind of like, yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and build some more Deku bases so that I can show you the rest of their units and some of their buildings. Build one there. And these P-hats are all wandering down here. Build this one right there. And I think I only needed 3. I think the Deku Scrubs, if I remember right, they had 16 buildings. They might have 18 though. Let's see. 4, 8, 12. And they have 16. Okay, cool. I'll go to this one first. So I showed those ones. I'll save the Deku Babas for last and the Beetles. Okay, I'll do this one. So this building is the greenhouse, which I don't know, I just aesthetically really like the look of this building. If you look carefully, it's got like the weird bubble kind of thing from Majora's Mask over the windows. Well, I mean, the bubbles are the windows, actually. I guess they use those bubbles to trap heat inside the building to grow whatever it is that Deku Scrubs grow. But I'll go ahead and show their next batch of units. Okay, now this guy right here. This is the one that was also in Four Sword Adventures. They were also in Majora's Mask, but this unit is the Bubbling. It's a little tiny guy. He has a ranged attack where he shoots this giant bubble, and that giant bubble will stun enemies. And I think that's pretty much it. I think that was pretty easy to describe, but I guess I'll go ahead and demonstrate it on this poor sand seal up here, because I think the bubble looks really cool. At least the effect of the bubble, him blowing the bubble, looks cool to me. See if you can see the little bubble grows and then he just spits it out. Yeah, that's the Bubbling. I was gonna say he's not too special, but he's so adorable that he's special in his own way. And then the next Deku Scrub unit is this guy here. This guy is the Mega Scrub. I think he's actually the largest Deku Scrub. I think he's a little bit larger than the Deku King if you don't count the Deku King's bulb above his head. These guys aren't terribly strong compared to units from other factions, but they're actually a very, very strong Deku Scrub unit. I would say they're probably their only unit that's designed to engage extensively in melee. If I remember correctly, they are either immune to knockback or resistant to knockback. I'm pretty sure they're only resistant to it. They're not immune to it. So I'm trying to compare them to another unit in terms of like how strong they are. They're weaker than most normal melee kind of soldier units that most of the other factions have. Like if you send these guys against Hylian Knights, the Knights are just going to mop the floor with them. The Knights have better armor, they do more damage. But considering the Deku Scrubs don't have very good melee units, he's valuable in that sense. He has actually pretty high HP for a Deku Scrub unit too. So unless he's attacked by like magic or mage units, he's probably gonna last a long time before he dies, just from his high HP count. But yeah, nothing too special about him other than the fact that he's like the only really good melee unit that Deku Scrubs have. I mean, they have some creature units that are pretty good in a melee, but their creature units are pretty expensive, so he's probably more cost effective to produce in large numbers. So anyway, what is the next batch of units? I guess I'll show their creature units next. They have quite a few creature units. In fact, they have some of the best creature units in the game. And all three of their creature units are very upgradable too. So go ahead and spread them out a little bit. I love this guy. I'll show him in just a second. First up is the... Oh, actually, I forgot to show this one, but this one is actually... This one's actually one of the hero units, so I won't show her until we get to the hero video. But this unit's really cool because it's a flying unit. It just looks really cool too. But anyway, I'll go into details about that one later. Their creature units. First up is the Picket, or Picket? I'm not sure how it's pronounced because there's not a lot of pronunciation in Zelda games, but I call them Pickets. They are from A Link to the Past, and I think that is the only game that they showed up in. They might have been in Link's Awakening, but I think they're only in A Link to the Past. But they are a wild plant creature that the Deku Scrubs have kind of domesticated. They are a melee unit, but their tongue has an extremely long reach. So despite the fact that they're a melee unit, they're kind of almost a ranged unit just because of how far away that they can attack. So if you have a front line of soldiers that are holding off an enemy army, these guys can safely just park behind your front line and send their long tongues over your units to attack the enemy army that's engaging your melee units, which I think is really cool. If the unit closest to that I can think of is the Inca unique unit from Age of Empires 2. I can't remember what they're called. I think it started with a K, but the Incas had like this spearman with a really long spear, and they could attack from multiple tiles away while your melee unit's engaged an enemy. And that's basically what this unit is, except instead of a Native American with a long spear, these guys are crazy plant pumpkin things with this giant barbed tongue. Also, again, as with several of the other units I showed, once we have stealth in the engine, these guys will be able to burrow into the ground and become invisible. So they can also, in the future, they'll be able to launch surprise attacks too. But for now, they're just a very long reach melee unit. And I think they're the first melee unit in the game with that kind of ability, so that's pretty cool. Alrighty. Next up is the Snapdragon, which, if I remember correctly, is also only from A Link to the Past. I'm pretty sure these guys were not in any of the other Zelda games, but people will correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. They might have been in Link's Awakening, but I'm pretty sure they weren't. I'm also pretty sure they weren't in Four Sword Adventures. But anyway, Snapdragons, they are another kind of murderous, psychotic plant creature that the Deku Scrubs were able to kind of domesticate. I like these guys' animations. Anyway, the reason this unit is really valuable to them is it's pretty fast, even though... Yeah, the Deku Scrubs actually are lacking in a lot of fast units, even though they're able to traverse terrain really easily because they got like flying units and whatnot. This might be the fastest unit in their army other than their cavalry. So they're really fast. Their attack rate is also incredibly fast, so they have a very high DPS rating for a melee unit. They just like flail their two tentacles around rapidly and bite whatever's in front of them. So they have a very high rate of attack, and the feature isn't in the engine yet. You're actually probably going to hear me say that a few times until we get more factions into the game. But this guy his speed will increase and his damage will increase as he takes damage. So the more this guy is in combat and the more he's getting beaten up by enemy forces, the more powerful and faster he will become. But right now he's just a very, very fast melee unit with a very, very high DPS. In fact, let me see what his attack is. 21 hack damage at a rate of 1.2 seconds. I think most units, the attack rate is about 1.8 to 2 seconds for most melee units. So he's faster than other melee units. But anyway, I think that is the only unique features this guy has. Anyway, probably my favorite creature unit that the Deku Scrubs have is the Manhandle. This giant spinning plant of doom. It is a very, very large creature unit. It's very, very expensive. It deals tons of splash damage, tons of knockback damage. It's a late game unit, so you probably won't get them out until the late game. But I just love these guys. They're so cool. They got the 4 heads, and each of the 4 heads independently attack enemies around them. And if they're completely surrounded, they'll just spin in place and try and fling everything around. Originally, I wanted this creature to kind of be like the Gliok that Lanayru has, where their heads just get cut off as they take damage, but I really wanted that to be kind of a unique thing that the Gliok has. So instead, these guys actually can regenerate damage. When they're not in combat, they'll kind of like slowly heal themselves, because in Nephi canon, the Manhandle is actually 5 different creatures. They're kind of like, they have like this symbiotic relationship where like the center thing provides these Baba-like creatures with locomotion, and the center thing is able to heal the heads as they take damage. So this creature has regeneration, and it has an upgrade that you can give it that allows it to regenerate when it's in combat, which is really handy. So even when they're taking damage in combat, if you get their upgrade, they'll also be able to heal themselves. And the Deku Scrubs have no healing ability whatsoever, so any healing ability is really valuable for a faction like that. In fact, most factions in the game don't have the ability to heal. It's almost exclusively a Zora thing, with a few outliers like the Hylian, the Maristans, and one other faction has healing. I'm trying to remember what it was. I want to say it's... Oh yeah, Mifa for Lanayru province. She has a healing ability, but they don't have like a healing unit or anything. But anyway, that's the Manhandle. Really awesome creature unit. In the video I posted a few days ago, you can see them in action. I kind of focused on them. Sorry, I'm getting hypnotized by it spinning around. It's so funny. Okay, anyway, I'll move on to the next units, because I still have a few more units. I just kind of wanted to save them for last, because they have a lot of cool features. They're Deku Babas and they're Beetles, so I think I will do the Deku Babas first. Yeah, I'll do it. Okay, anyway. The Deku Scrubs have Deku Babas, which at first don't seem like they'd be very useful. They are completely stationary. They cannot move. So even if I order him to move, he's kind of stuck there, as in Nintendo canon. Even though they have a pretty long reach for a melee unit, because they're so small, they still don't have much reach. So these guys seem useless at first, but what their use is for is, let me bring some of these guys over here, because I need these guys to show you. What is cool about... Oh, I already have some over here. What is cool about Deku Babas is not all of them, but most Deku Scrub units can carry them around on their heads, which I'll go ahead and demonstrate now. So I'll order this Deku Baba to garrison on their worker's head, and then I bring the worker up here to pick him up. And now the worker's got the little Deku Baba riding around on his head. So you can pick up the Deku Babas, you can put them down at choke points to guard things, but more often than not, you'll just probably keep them on the Deku Scrubs' heads because they can attack enemies while they're on the Deku Scrubs' heads. And because they have a relatively long reach for a melee unit, they basically won't have any collision problems. Or is that? I don't know if that's how I'd word it. Basically, they'll be able to attack enemies along with the unit that they're attached to. And that's pretty useful for Deku workers because Deku workers can't attack. So if you're going against like a Gerudo player that wants to harass your workers and kill them, just put some Deku Babas on their head and the Deku Babas will be able to protect them from enemies, which is really, really cool. I absolutely love that ability. Again, I've said this like 50 times since I started using this engine, but that was basically impossible in Medieval 2. I'll go ahead and garrison one on this guy. So he's on this guy here now. And I'll go ahead and show it on this one too. Yeah, that's really awesome. So yeah, Deku Babas basically went from like one of the most useless units to one of the coolest augments that a faction has. I'm absolutely thrilled with that ability. Not only that, but there's only 3 of them right now, but I think by the end I'll have a bunch of different ones. But you can customize the abilities and features of Deku Babas. You can upgrade them with projectile teeth, where it turns them into ranged units where they shoot out their teeth. You can upgrade them with venomous teeth, which poison damage isn't in the engine yet, but when it is added in, they will be able to deal poison damage. And you can also upgrade them with thorny coatings, which gives them an aura that passively damages enemies around them. So I'll go ahead and research all those. And I'll upgrade this guy with the thorns. And now as you can see, he's got this... Oh, sorry, I got distracted by the P-hat there. He's got this ring around him. Any enemy that goes into that ring will take passive melee damage. As you can imagine, that would be very useful for Deku Scrub workers to stop enemies from harassing them. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any more things Deku Babas have. For such a pathetic and weak Zelda enemy, they ended up being one of the coolest things. At least I think they're one of the coolest things in the game right now, because you can just put on Deku Scrub heads. I think that's definitely a feature that contributes to the case that Deku Scrubs are the funnest faction in the game right now. Anyway, they do have one more Deku Baba unit, which I'll go ahead and train. And that is this awesome monstrosity here. This thing is the Baba Crawler. It's basically a large Deku Baba that can move around and crawl around. It has this aura around it, kind of like the Deku Baba here. And that is because these guys passively damage enemies around them. So if a bunch of melee units try to kill this guy, they're going to take a bunch of passive damage from him. These guys are very, very slow, however, so they're probably going to lag behind your armies. They're probably better to use as base defense. I haven't really figured out what they're useful for. I'm sure Iron Wolf will figure out a use for them, but like the other Deku Scrubs, they can garrison Deku Babas into them. They can carry up to 3 Deku Babas, which I'll go have him pick them up right now. So there, now he's carrying around the 3 Deku Babas, which will each independently attack enemies, which is just so cool. It's so awesome. So yeah, that is the Baba Crawler. I really like the design. He's one of the few original designs I've made. I mean, I have quite a few original designs, I guess, but if I like the canon design, I try and stick to the canon design as much as possible. But there was not really anything that from Zelda canon that kind of suited the purpose that I wanted for this guy. I basically wanted a very large and mobile Deku Baba as a unit, and if I remember correctly, the only mobile Deku Babas are just the small ones after you cut their necks, and they'll like limp around. But yeah, that is the Baba Crawler. Really, really cool unit because, well, for multiple reasons. So I think that's it for Deku Babas. We're getting near the end of their unit roster. Next up is their beetle units. So I'll go ahead and train them. Go ahead and spread them out here. Actually, I'll train a few more because I'm going to need a few of these to show what their abilities are. So these are the Hut Beetles, and these ones over here are the giant Hut Beetles. They are based on the giant beetle that made an appearance in Hyrule Warriors, which in turn I believe is based on a very, very tiny beetle from Skyward Sword. I'm not sure why in Hyrule Warriors it's associated with Agatha. I mean, maybe it's just because she considers herself the princess of all bugs. But I don't know. In Nephi canon, they are a Deku Scrub thing. Deku Scrubs domesticated them. They serve as beasts of burden, and they serve as cavalry, but not initially. When you first train them, they're just creature units. Pretty fast creature unit. Nothing particularly noteworthy about them other than the fact that they have a pretty high armor value for a creature cavalry unit. Or at this stage, there's a creature unit. Actually, they're technically never considered cavalry, even though they serve that function. But anyway, why do I keep bringing up cavalry? That is because most Deku Scrub units can ride on their backs, including some of their heroes. So I'll go ahead and train one of their heroes. And we'll garrison this guy and one of their workers. So, like when you garrison a unit in a building, you just order him to garrison on the beetle, and they will ride on the beetle, like so. So cool. And I'll garrison the Deku Princess on one of them to show that some of their heroes can garrison on them. So yeah, their guys can ride around on the beetles, which is really, really cool if you ask me. Definitely another one of their fun abilities. It's probably more useful to put ranged units on them, so Scrublings and Bubblings would probably be the best units to put on them, because then they can attack from a distance. Obviously the melee units can attack while on their backs too. But ranged units, I suspect, me personally, I would probably mostly use ranged units as the riders for them. Although, when these guys are at about 50% health, they will knock anyone that's riding on them off. So, you probably, I'm not sure how to describe it, but basically, if they take too much damage, they'll kick whoever's riding them off. And since the Deku Scrubs don't have any healing, you won't be able to garrison them again if they take too much damage. However, they do have a tech you can research, which I believe reduces the penalty to 25% health. Yeah. So if you research this tech right here, then they'll be able to stay on their backs until they get down to 25% health, as opposed to 50%. So yeah, that is the Hut Beetles. Definitely one of my favorite units these guys have. I think I like the Manhandle more, but I like the fact that you can garrison a bunch of different units and kind of turn them into a sort of cavalry unit. In fact, you can even put a Deku Baba on them. So I'll go ahead and use this last Deku Baba here. You can even have a Deku Baba riding on their backs, which that was actually in the Medieval 2 version of the game. That was actually the only form the Deku Babas appeared in that game, is that they were riding on the backs of these beetles. You couldn't get them off in that game, but you can here. So I'll drop him off right there. Anyway, I think this is the last unit they have. I probably forgot a unit or two. I'll go ahead and double check before I move on from their units. But this is the giant Hut Beetle. And initially, they are just a large creature unit that is good at sieging enemy buildings. So they're just a pure siege unit. And that is actually what I forgot, their siege units. I'll go ahead and show those after. But anyway, this big guy can actually be upgraded into 2 more units. One of them is a part of a hero unit, though, so I'll only be able to show one of them in this video. So I'll go ahead and get the upgrade. And you can upgrade these units to add a platform on their back, like so. And then you can garrison Deku Scrubs on their back, which I'll go ahead and demonstrate. Get them off these beetles here. So I'll garrison them on him. So yeah, he can garrison units up in the platform and transport them around. Kind of like with the smaller beetles, you'll probably mostly just put range units up on top of them. But if you want to transport a bunch of melee units around, then you can put melee units up in there too. And yes, you can put Deku Babas up in there. You can put Deku Babas on almost any unit that the Deku Scrubs have. I think except for their 3 creature units, you can't put them on Manhandles, you can't put them on Pickets or Snapdragons, or their flying unit. But you can put them on pretty much any other Deku Scrub unit, which is pretty cool. There he is up there. Alright, let me show their 2 siege units, because I forgot to show them. Where's the building? Right there. So, Deku Scrubs have 2 siege units. Well, 3 if you count the beetle. The beetle's a siege unit too. The beetles, they're a good siege unit though. Their other 2 siege units are actually really, really crappy 4 siege units. The first one is the Scrub Ram. This little tiny battering ram here. The one positive about it is that it is very cheap and that it is an early game unit. So you can get them out before most battering rams that other factions have. I think the only other faction that gets a battering ram out this early is the Kokiri. They can they have the Mudman battering ram. This one is a little more durable than the Mudman one, but it's not as fast. But it's incredibly weak. In the late game, you probably won't use them at all. Just normal melee units can harass them. Obviously, fire damage will just massacre them, and magic damage will probably destroy them pretty fast. And other siege weapons like catapults can probably take them out pretty easily too. So you'll probably only use these units in the early game if you're going against a player who's being particularly defensive and doesn't have a large army yet. Although if you have enough of these, even in the late game, they still might be useful. But I would probably shift over to the giant beetles at that point, because the giant beetles are a lot better. And the other Deku Scrub siege unit is the Deku Pult, which is this little tiny catapult that fires giant Deku nuts at enemies. It doesn't do a lot of damage, and like the other one, it's very, very fragile. So just a pair, 2 or 3 melee units can take them out pretty fast. What is useful about them, other than the fact that they don't cost much, is they actually have a very, very high rate of fire for a siege weapon. And because they shoot Deku nuts, their attack stuns any enemies in the radius of the projectile when it hits the ground. So they can stun groups of enemy units, even though they don't deal a lot of damage. And they're siege units, so you'll probably use them mostly against buildings. But again, once you get to the city phase, you're gonna want to switch to these giant beetles. They're just that much more useful. Although in the end, these might just be more cost effective because they're so cheap. We'll find out when we do some multiplayer testing with them, I guess. Alright, let me just double check and make sure I did not forget any of their units. I believe that is all of their units. There's one more kind of unit I can show, but it's not really a unit. I'll go ahead and make that building. Where is it? Where is their marketplace? There it is. And let me check here. Okay, yeah, I showed all their units. But anyway, one kind of unique thing the Deku Scrubs have that I don't think any other faction will have has to do with their merchant unit. If you look here, it's the Business Scrub from Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. I believe they were also in the Oracle games. I want to say they were actually in A Link to the Past too, but I'm probably wrong about that. They might have actually appeared before Ocarina of Time. I'm drawing a blank, but I'm actually pretty sure they weren't before Ocarina of Time. But anyway, Business Scrub. So he looks just kind of like a normal merchant, but the Deku Scrubs have an upgrade that you can research right here. And what the upgrade does is it turns him into a flying unit. And I believe he is going to be the only flying merchant unit in the game. So that is really, really handy if you're playing a team game in multiplayer. Oh, there's a little P-hat flying by him. That's coincidental timing. That's funny. Anyway. Obviously, because they can fly, that allows them to go over any terrain. So if your ally is on the other side of the map, he can get there no problem. Only flying units and ranged units can attack him, so melee units can't harass your trade routes. And yeah, the Oka might have a flying merchant unit, but at the moment, I think the Deku Scrubs are the only faction that have flying merchants. So that might seem like a small thing, but it's actually really useful in multiplayer matches when you're on a team. Alrighty. Okay, I think I showed all their units. What other features do they have? The Mad Scrubs, which I will show in just a second. I'm just double checking to make sure I'm not missing anything else. Alright, yeah, Mad Scrubs. So, one of the features of the Deku Scrubs, let me go ahead and ungarrison all of these first, is the Mad Scrub disease. I do not know if it was a disease in Nintendo canon. It's really vague. But in Neffy canon, the Deku Scrubs suffer from something called Mad Scrub disease. And it is something that is both useful and whatever the opposite of useful is. I'm drawing a blank on the word. It is both useful and bad for a player. Basically what happens is when a Deku Scrub is killed, there is a 50% chance that instead of dying, they will turn into a Mad Scrub. And what a Mad Scrub is, for those that aren't familiar, they gain like this red coloration, and they basically go insane and they start attacking everything around them, including other Deku Scrubs. So, while you're technically kind of getting a second chance with a unit, you're losing control of the unit, and it could potentially attack your own units and work against you. So it's kind of like this gamble sort of thing, where depending on how your army is laid out when you're fighting an enemy, you might end up sabotaging your own army with your own casualties, or you might actually get second chances at dealing extra damage to enemies if your units are dying and they start attacking enemy units. But anyway, I'll go ahead and demonstrate the Mad Scrub disease. Let me just make a large swarm of Scrublings, and I'll kind of make them away from the base so that they don't start just massacring everyone at the base. Now, there will be some technologies that will kind of allow the player to sort of influence and control how the Mad Scrub disease works. Like right now, there's a technology that reduces the chance, and one of the Deku heroes will have an ability that makes it so that Mad Scrub units that are actual Deku Scrubs will not attack your own units when they turn into Mad Scrubs. But just for the record, every single Deku Scrub unit, with the exception of their 2 Beetles, all of their creature units, all of their hero units, even the Deku Babas, all of their units can go mad when they die. So that hero ability will only apply to actual Deku Scrubs. But anyway, I will go ahead and forcibly kill these guys, and about half of them, give or take, should turn into Mad Scrubs. So, and as you can see, some of them turned into Mad Scrubs, and they just run around. And see, I can't select them. They're considered hostile. Their attack rates go up. I believe their damage is a little bit higher, but they have lower health, and if you look at their health bar, it slowly goes down. So they're not permanent. They'll eventually die if no one kills them, or they don't fight. If they don't fight any units. So yeah. Those are the Mad Scrubs. I'll go ahead and show some of their other units going insane too. I guess I'll do the Manhandles. I'll make a few of those. Move them out over there. Their beetles can't go insane. I'll show Mega Scrubs, I guess. Alright, so I'll forcibly kill these Manhandles, and 1 or 2 of them, possibly 3, should go insane. Only 1 of them, it looks like. So yeah, he's going after these guys now. I'll have them attack him. Okay, they are resistant to knockback, but not immune to it. I guess that answers that question from earlier. Oh, he died. He did not turn into a Mad Scrub, though. Let's see if that one turns into a Mad Scrub. Alright, he turned into a Mad Scrub. So as you can tell, like in a really big fight with dozens of units, the Mad Scrub disease can become a really, really huge thing. That one also turned into a Mad Scrub. So if there's like dozens of Mad Scrubs attacking your own units, it can just quickly get out of hand, and it'll just spread like crazy. It's pretty cool. Let's kill those ones, and 2 of them turn into Mad Scrubs. And nope, can't control them, and their health slowly goes down, so they'll die eventually as they wander around for stuff to kill. Obviously, Mad Scrubs will not attack other Mad Scrubs. I guess they're able to discern that other Mad Scrubs are their friends for some reason. Oh, they're actually capturing these ruins. That's interesting. I did not know that the wildlife faction could do that. Wow, I didn't know that was possible. They're capturing the ruins. That's so cool. I wonder if the levers could do that. I deleted the levers from this map, but for testing purposes. But I've never seen levers try and capture. You know what? I bet I know why. It's because they're using. Because wild animals actually, they don't have a capture attack in their template files, but these guys do. So yeah, they will try and capture buildings. That is kind of cool. I might try and find a way to make that into a feature. That's so cool. I love Deku Scrubs. They're so awesome. Okay, what other things do they have? I think that's pretty much all of their unique features. As usual, I'll go ahead and show their Wonder, and I'll show their Titan, but I won't go into details. I'll save the Titan for the Hero and Titan video. Actually, I want to see if he's trying. Yep, he's capturing my base. That's so funny. Although the base is gonna kill him before he has a chance. Anyway, I'll go ahead and build the Wonder. Let me just find my builders. There they are. Let me find a spot to build it. I'll build it over here. You go help him. Okay, you're closer. You'll build it faster. So, the Deku Scrub Wonder is the wooded temple from Spirit Tracks, which I am 99% certain is based on the Woodfall Temple from Majora's Mask. Some people have asked why Adulwa and the Woodfall Temple are actually not part of the Deku Scrub faction, and that is because Adulwa is kind of sort of his own faction and has his own set of units, but they're really far off in the future, so we probably won't be seeing any Adulwa stuff for quite a few years until I get to the Terminus stuff. But anyway, the Wooded Temple, if you look at the Wooded Temple in Spirit Tracks, it has a lot of similarities to the Woodfall Temple. So in Nephi canon, it's basically just the uncorrupted version of the Woodfall Temple. The Woodfall Temple will look like this. It'll just have the cut down trees, and it'll have the poison waterfalls, and obviously it'll look like vines are growing all over it and it's falling apart. But the uncorrupted Deku Scrubs, even got the little Deku Scrub statues up there. It's just the Wooded Temple, loosely based on the one from Spirit Tracks. And I don't know what sound I'm going to give their wonder yet, so it's just using the Temple of Time for now. But anyway, their Titan, which is also from Spirit Tracks. Probably saw it in the last video. It is the Stagnox, but again, I won't go into any details until the Hero and Titan video. But go ahead and take a look at him. Kind of like with the Laneru and Ordana Titan, he doesn't glow because I still haven't gotten the glow shader, and the 0 AD people have not added it into the engine, even though they've shown it. Or I don't think the 0 AD people showed it. It was someone else who showed the glow shader, and I really, really, really want his exoskeleton to glow. But we'll have to wait until a future release of 0 AD to get the glow effects in. So in the meantime, his shell doesn't glow, but hopefully one day it will. Alright, let me, I guess, quadruple check and just make sure I really, really didn't forget anything. I think that is all the Deku Scrub features. I have no idea how long I've been going on. I've not been keeping track of time. So I don't know if this is the longest faction video yet, or the shortest, or if it's just the normal average length. But no, it looks like I showed everything. I showed their scouts, I showed their unique metal resource that isn't a metal, their merchant, their units, mat scrubs. Yeah, I think I showed everything. If I forgot anything, I'll show it in the hero video when I show the Deku Scrub heroes and their units. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that look at the Deku Scrubs, and I hope you guys will enjoy playing as them. If you are a patron, this will be available for you to try out probably by the time this video is uploaded on YouTube, although it might take a little bit longer, but it should be up within several hours of this video being on YouTube. In fact, if YouTube gives me problems, it might even be available before the video is even processed. But yeah, if you're patrons, you'll be able to try these guys out. If you're not a patron, they'll probably be out sometime in the next month and a half after I finish the next faction. And most people that follow me know what the next faction is, but for those that don't know, the next faction I'm getting in is the Lizalfos, who, they're not getting a visual makeover, but they are getting a massive gameplay overhaul compared to Medieval 2. They're gonna have a bunch of really, really cool stuff that none of the other factions have. I'm not gonna spoil some of them, but it involves a pantheon of deities. Take that as you will. But anyway, hope you like the Deku Scrubs, and I'll go ahead and kill all of them and send them all into poor Mad Scrub disease. And now they're all going crazy and attacking everyone. The ones that turned into Mad Scrubs anyway. Aww. Poor workers. They're tried to bash his head into the... Oh, that's what I forgot to show. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope the patrons, I hope you guys like the Deku Scrubs, and I hope the rest of you like the Deku Scrubs when they come out. Anyway, see you guys next time.
Hey, listen!